the level of disconnect that they are at and the level of turnoff that they have with voters. I work in a lot of campaigns with local elected from the city to the state, and a lot of them get mad and say, why aren't people voting? Why aren't you guys voting? And I'm like, look what you give them.
Hey, it's Jordan. I am in Flint, Michigan, East Palestine, Ohio, Tumwa, Iowa. Please support the only independent outlet on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up. And can you kind of talk about, because it seems to me, I mean, from Ferguson to Michael Brown, Freddie Gray, Eric Garner, obviously George Floyd. There was a lot of talk. There was a lot of protests in the street, but 4 years later, we're back pretty much to the same place.
Right.
And you still have this horrible violence here in the backdrop of 10 blocks in Milwaukee are beautiful. They've gentrified the hell out of the city. But then we go to the north side. It doesn't look so great.
Right.
It's not unique just to Milwaukee. This is happening all over the country.
Right.
But gentrification is going on. Disinvestment in these communities is going on.
Right.
Yet we're seeing all these political ads, save democracy, or you hear from the media, the economy's doing great.
Right. Well, I would say it's twofold. It's two edges to the sword. Being that I'm involved with the city and violence prevention efforts, being that I'm tapped into these different statistics and things, nationally crime is down, including in the city. So there's that part of it, but the investment in the community, the actionable parts to change how this stuff looks and clean it up. Although I will say they have been doing some work as far as all of the city properties that have been vacant. Little by little, there you start to see new houses come up, but nowhere near to the level of houses that we have still vacant. With the homeless issue that we have, the Democratic Party plays a part in why it's so divided and why people are so willing to jump over to the other side, because we've had so much of that. This is a democratically ran city and county for the most part. The rest of the state is Republican. The state legislature is run by Republicans. We do have a Democratic governor, but people are not seeing the movement or the progress, especially for the north side of Milwaukee, for the black population, that we would expect to get from the Democrats for our so-called loyalty.
Would you say that for voters, particularly in Milwaukee, we should say a lot of reporting and data shows Hillary Clinton lost in 2016 Wisconsin. She underperformed in Milwaukee, specifically among black voters. Same thing in Detroit for Hillary Clinton and Philadelphia. But would you say if black voters have a choice between extremist Republicans but Chamber of Commerce Democrats, it's not exactly inspiring if your lesser of two evil economically is the status quo.
Right. I think that's where we're at. I think people are just willing to try something different. And the Republicans are doing a great job of, they accuse the other side of pandering and doing different things. They are doing an extreme job of it. And they're offering different things. They're putting things out there like we had the best regime for black people under Trump, and Trump helped black people the most. And people are buying into that, even though literally if you ask them what have they seen that they can prove that with, they can't tell you.
Well, a lot of black males I talk to get in my cab is voting for Trump.
And what's their reasons they give you?
He's a felon, and he released a lot of people, and his name was on the check that they got. Real simplistic. You can't argue with them. You can't change their thought pattern. That name was on the check.
Right.
But because they hear it and because it's so widely pushed, people are going for that.
And do you see in the black community, because obviously in the white community, do you see people gravitating towards this anti-immigrant message? Because I feel like the Republicans have distracted the masses to blame the immigrants for, prices being high or not being able to get a job. When the reality is you're not able to get a job because the corporate America has bought the government and sent your jobs to other countries.
I just had this argument on the podcast. One of the hosts said he was a Trump supporter, and this came up. And I even asked him, we live in Wisconsin. The immigration issue is not even an issue for this city. So why is that your talking point for why you're supporting that side? We don't have that issue. And so, but people are playing into that. America always has to have an enemy. And for the most part, it's been us. But now you have a new enemy that everybody can kind of
It's fine to have an enemy, just make it the right one.
Right. And again, with the statistics, all this crime that they talk about they're bringing in, if crime is down, where's all this crime that these people are supposedly at skyrocketing, numbers? And again, people are just regurgitating things and repeating things.
Do you feel, because you've been here for a long time, so you saw 2016, 2020, I hear different things from people here. Mm-hmm. Some people say Milwaukee's going to be strong for Harris, and then some people say, I don't know, it depends who you talk to.
Man.
I mean, the rest of the state, like you said, pretty red, so she has to do very well in Madison and Milwaukee.
Well, me in particular, I know I try to focus on the population of younger voters and people who have never voted or people who don't believe in the voting system to try to get them interested or involved. I see a lot of this talking come from people who don't necessarily usually vote. So now you have a bunch of people who may just be talking and giving, that argument of why they want to vote or will vote. I'm not sure they will actually go and vote, but I mean, it's enough talk and enough conversation to be concerned about, because typically you will have the mass majority who would easily be voting for that other side, and that's just not what I'm
Democrats,
saying right now.
Right. And do you think Harris, obviously you're not for Trump, do you think Harris is doing enough? Because perfect example, we've been driving in the swing states and I see billboards, Kamala Harris supports raising the minimum wage. Mm-hmm. It doesn't say to what.
Right.
Do you have the number? How are you going to do it? There's a lot of vague things going out there, but I believe Bernie, whether you loved him or hated him, it was bold. You knew what he was for. With her, it seems to be these small
kind of vague, broad, that you can't really pinpoint. So I would blame that on the Democratic Party. And I would say the Democratic Party, it's a time across the nation for the Democratic Party to understand the level of disconnect that they are at and the level of turnoff that they have with voters. I work in a lot of campaigns with local elected from the city to the state, and a lot of them get mad and say, why aren't people voting? Why aren't you guys voting? And I'm like, look what you give them. That you don't even understand that people are burned out because they have to keep dealing with the same stuff all the time. And so it's come a time in the party where they need to understand that things should be being done differently, that there are other issues they need to present directly more to people. Like when folks come here, I'm not in those rooms. I'm not asking them direct questions or putting my input to say, this is what we need here in Milwaukee. It's the same groups. It's like these circles were invite only, or, it's very limited in who gets the access. And I think they need to change that.
I also think, I wonder what you think, but I'm a white dude, but if you're in the black community and you can't afford to go to the nice restaurants that they've built in gentrified downtown, you can't really afford to go to the sporting arena that they're put downtown. And it's kind of this tale of two cities between where they're pouring all the money in downtown Milwaukee, same thing for Detroit, Chicago, Milwaukee. It kind of feels like you're being pushed out of your community.
Just had the Republican convention here, and the setup was pretty much downtown was blocked off for them, and we couldn't have access to our own downtown. And not only that, there ended up a police shooting here from a police department that came here for the Republican convention. One of those other cities that sent officers here, they shot and killed someone here.
So it's not only that you're being shot and killed by your own police, other police are coming in.
Right. And so I feel a lot of people, again, these are instances of why people are calling out the failures at the Democratic Party and how they do things and how we get put on the back burner for other people's interests. And again, when you present yourself that way and when things like that happen, you can't be completely mad when people start to drift over to the other side and say, well, I know we get nothing from them because we literally get treated like hell by the Republicans because we're the only really urban city in this entire state that is the economic driver to the entire state, but we get the least money sent back. We always get reasons why they don't want to invest in the city. But I don't know why people want to try that side now when in this state, we don't get anything from them.
So then the audience would ask, why don't you break from the Democratic Party and entertain the Green Party or third parties? Is that something people here
It's just not realistic on a mass enough basis to think any of those candidates would ever. Essentially, we live in a two-party country. It's either the Democrats or the Republicans. Them are your only true, real two options. Yes, you have a mass of people that may 40,000 or so. That's not going to get you the presidency. That's not going to get you some of these positions. And so, unless we.
What about on the local level? Do people here?
On the local level, there have been like the Democratic Socialists here have been making some movement and some noise, but those are like local compact groups, and they've done a lot of organizing and outreach in their particular districts, so they've been able to have success with that. But on a bigger scale, I just don't see that being possible at this point, unless we really have that conversation and that intentionality nationwide.
You know, we've heard from the media specifically about Michigan in terms of the Gaza issue, because obviously Dearborn has the largest Arab American population. But I'm hearing it's an issue here too among folks. Have you talked to folks who that's a big problem for them?
I see people online, and I see different groups that are really, really focused on the different war issues, the different issues that are happening internationally. That's not something that I have the privilege to be able to focus on and be as informed about. But I do see people who have that is their issue that they find the highest as part of this election.
So if Harris loses Wisconsin, what would you say? What would you say would be the main reason?
I would say that, again, I would blame the Democratic Party. They are not doing, and she would be part of that as well, because once that message is out there that Democrats are not doing anything for us, that they're all panders or whatever, that affects everybody, especially on a national or presidential focus. Once that has shifted and got into the minds of a community, it's very hard to unravel. And so you have to do a lot of work. And I would say that she is. But again, when you have an issue with people having access to correct information, I don't understand why there's not a law or something in place that prevents these folks from being able to flat out lie. I think that would be hugely helpful. We dealt with that with COVID, where I had to literally become a news source because there was so much different information coming from so many different places. That's part of the reason why people were dying. So if you want correct information, please let it be vetted, and then we give you what the best.
So you're talking about lies coming from Trump and others.
Yeah, I mean, and even from Harris, like, no matter who's doing it, if you are flat out lying about something, that should not be allowed, because that is tainting the minds and the opinions of voters to a point where we are in. I honestly believe no matter who wins, it's going to be some level of bad.
But then you have, obviously, that could go too far, causing censorship. So it's kind of like.
Well, I don't believe it's censorship if you're lying. If you're lying, you should be censored from lying. Right. You know what I mean? On a political level, at least, because politics should be based off truth. Right. Right. So that would be a form.
Well, I don't think we'd have any politicians left if you made a law.
Hey, I think that would give the American people and people who are who want to deal with the voting system a lot more trust. You have the other side who's completely bought into the fact that people are lying and cheating. So that is their reason for supporting this guy, right? So why not make that, something that all of us can invest in? None of us want to be lied to. None of us want to be led astray, right?
I'm curious what you think. Obviously you don't speak for all black men, but former President Obama kind of made a stir a couple days ago. He was in Pittsburgh, and I guess he had a message. He said for the brothers.
We have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers. So if you don't mind, just for a second, I'm going to speak to y'all directly and say that when you have a choice that is this clear.
I guess to him, he feels a lot of black men are moving towards Trump because they're not comfortable with a woman being president. A lot of people didn't like that. They felt he was, why are you singling out black men as opposed to other groups who might be misogynist? Some I saw said it's not because she's a woman. Right. Well, what did you take from that?
Again, as a black person, and that's why I'm an activist in the part of town that I'm an activist in. I cannot go into a different community and lead them in their issues, right? So I can only give what I know. He's speaking to the people that he can relate to, right? And there is an issue with men in general, but in particular, there is an issue with black men buying into that misogynist standpoint of I can't be led by a woman, and I think that's crazy. Mm-hmm. I think if that is the basis or part of your reason for not voting for her, I think there's a problem with that. So him addressing it, I can see why some people would not like that. I can see why some people would support it. That is a conversation that needs to be had, though, because in this country and at this time, me personally, I think we should be secure in ourselves that whoever is the best person to lead, and that's what politics is about. Who is the best person to lead us? Mm-hmm. Who is the most qualified for the job, right? A person being a man or a woman shouldn't be part of that. I don't believe, unless someone is just grossly not qualified or can't do the job.
My last question, whether she wins or not, isn't the country in trouble if a used car salesman, orange orangutan, could have won in the first place? Who's calling, Mexicans rapists and drug lords, has been accused by 20 women. Sorry if you're MAGA watching, this is the truth. Been accused by 20 women of all sorts of sexual violence and harassment, stiffed his workers for 40 years. I mean, I could go on. That it's even this close? I mean, I know the country's divided, but I feel like if it's this close with someone like this, maybe we need a new party than the Democrats.
Listen, if I could have it my way, I think we would do away with this two-party system and come up with something fresh and clean and something that's more trustworthy to get us where we need to be. But that is most definitely a problem. That is so. I cannot tell you how many instances I can give you, right, including like I told you, the law he created or the initiative he created that I personally got caught up in, which gave me legal issues.
BIE?
But the fact that the Trump campaign here paid black people in particular to go door to door and do canvassing for them and didn't pay them. I had to go to the Republican office and make them pay people.
Pay black people that he had canvassing?
I can definitely pull the video up for you and show you. That was a real thing that happened here. A person that consistently lies, a person that's not paying his attorneys.
So his campaign told black folks, we'll pay you to go knock on doors, and then wasn't paying.
Did not pay them. Wow. Completely left the state. We're stiffing these people. I mean, caused total outrage, and I have to deal with that. And that is not the first. That's just something I can talk about locally, but just on a national scale, from the college to a lot of the stuff he's been involved. This guy is a liar, and this guy is not a trustworthy person. And me personally, I don't like people that take advantage of folks like that. And I believe he's taking advantage, not to mention, when you talk about black men, when you talk about black women, when you talk about any people of color, this is a guy whose rhetoric has reached to us, who just did a speech who says, would you want the white guy or the black woman? What is that? What is talking about people coming from the Congo and prisons in the Congo and talking about people eating pets and this different rhetoric that goes beyond the border or beyond a specific people who we feel like we're all jumping on. His rhetoric and his messages affect a lot of people of color. And people are just totally dismissing that for whatever reason. I don't know, but that's dangerous. That's very dangerous.